Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf, Nedarim Nun Gimel. We begin right on top of the Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, Nedarim Tamarim. My fellow says, I am making a nether to keep away from Tamarim, from dates. What is included in that expression? We know that they would produce honey from dates, date honey. So although typically honey was bee honey, but they would make devash from tamarim. In fact, when the pasuk lists the shivas haminim, those 7 special species of Eretz Yisrael, what are the last items on that list? Eretz zeis shemen u'devash. Devash here is a reference to dates from which they produce honey. We're speaking about fruits, right? So devash means date, which produces that honey. So the question is regarding Nedarim, which of course is based on the concept of Lashon B'nei Adam, the way people speak, what people have in mind when they express certain things, certain Lashonos. What is included in a neder from Tamarim? Is it only the date itself, the fruit, or its extractions as well? Says the Mishnah, Mutar b'devash. He has no issue with eating date honey. It's a different entity. It turned from solid into a liquid. And the Ran points out, yesterday we learned that in terms of chalav and kum, right? Reminder, chalav means the milk and kum is the whey, right? The watery residue, which drains from milk when it's turned into cheese. The Gemara told us yesterday that if in your community they call the kum after its source, after its origin, kuma de chalava, whey from milk, all agree that it's asur. It's included in a neder against milk. Here as well, says the Ran, we all call it devash timarim. In fact, we're going to see in the next Mishnah, stam devash. Just saying devash indicates bee honey. When you refer to date honey, you must spell it out. Devash tamarim. So if indeed it relates back to its source, why isn't it included in the neder on its source fruit? Why is noider menat tamarim mutar b'devash? Answers the Ran. Number one, here it's different. In contrast to the kum, coming from the chalav, they're both liquids. There's no change in form, as opposed to devash coming from tamarim. You had a fruit. Now you have produced a liquid. It's a different surah, it's a different form, it's a different format. And therefore the Tanakama at least holds it's a different entity and does not relate back to its source fruit and is not included in the neder against tamarim. Number 2, says the Ran, Kuma de chalava is an absolute description. It's kuma de chalava. It's milk whey. It's part of its label, part of its title. It describes its essence here. Why do we say devash tamarim? La'afuke, as opposed to regular devash. It's sort of a negative expression. It's meant to create that negative identity. It's not something else. It's devash tamarim as opposed to. So it's not an actual name. It's just a default way of naming it, and therefore, says the Ran, it's not really considered having named after its origin. It doesn't really relate to the tamarim, and therefore Tanakama holds noider menat tamarim does not include devash tamarim. So again, says the Mishnah, noider menat tamarim mutar b'devash tamarim mitzvanios. Second example. So tzvanios are these late harvested grapes which grow somewhat into the winter. And they don't really ripen much. They stay acidic and sour, from which you produce vinegar. It makes a neder against these stvanias. Stav is the fall time, so these fall time grapes, mutar b'chemetz stvanias, he can partake in vinegar produced from these items. The reason is the same as before. That's the Tanakama. A neder from the fruit does not include its derivative. Rabbi Yehuda ben Kessler, no. Kol sheshem toledase, whenever the derivative relates back to its source. Keruya olav is named after its parent fruit, such as dvash, timorim, chaymetz, sisvaniyos, v'noiderimenu, and he made a neder against the original fruit. Asur beyoytze himenu, that includes anything which derived from that original fruit. V'chachamim matirim, Chachamim say it's permissible. Asks the Gemara, Chachamim hainu tanakama. Why do we appear to have a third shita? They're matir, the Jews, just as the Tanakama. It's not really a new shita, it's a repetition of shita number 1. Ika b'nayu, there is a difference here. Chachamim, at the end of the Mishnah, will introduce a new concept, a big chidush, that even at times you can have the fruit itself be mutter. So just in advance of the Bryce, let me just explain briefly. Let's say you have something which is inedible. Tmarma edible, but these sitvanias, these grapes, are not really edible. He makes a neder against sisvanias. This shita will hold. You didn't have these sitvanias in mind because nobody eats them regardless. They're not edible. So what did you have in mind? What does your neder apply to? The chaymetz produced from those sisvanias. So when the Chachamim say matirim, they're going back to the 2 previous shittas, Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, who both say when you make a neder against the sisvanias, certainly the sisvanias are asur. It's a question regarding the chaymetz, yes or no, but the actual fruit which you described in your neder is asur. Chachamim say no way, it's inedible. Evidently, you meant the chaymetz coming from the sisvanias. That's included in the neder, but not the fruit itself. So that's shita number 3. Ika b'nai Yehuda, the Sanya, as we find in the Brisa. Klal ze Omar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar presented the following rule in terms of Nedarim. Kol shadar kalei echel. You have an item which is edible. V'derech hayetze mimenu le'echel. As well as its derivative, juice, etc., produced from this item is fully edible. Can go in tamarim, like dates, udvash tamarim, date honey. What happens? Nadar boy, if you make a neder against the date, asur b'yotzi mimenu. That includes the honey as well. Neidar miyotzi mimenu. Likewise, you made a neder against the date honey, asur boy. It includes the parent fruit as well, because it sort of goes hand in hand. If the derivative relates back to the origin, to the parent fruit, apparently it's kul echad, it's one thing. But says Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, that's only when the actual source fruit is edible, so it's included. But kol she'ein darkei le'echel, you're not accustomed to eating the parent fruit. It's not edible, such as the sisvanias grapes, low grade, inferior, sour grapes. V'derech hayetze mimenu le'echel, and it's a derech to eat the chaymetz coming from it. Here's a chiddush. Noider boy, even if you made a neder on the sour grape, ein asur ela b'yotzi mimenu, it only applies itself to the vinegar produced from there. Shelo niskaven zeh ela b'yotzi mimenu, because that's what he had in mind. The fruit is inedible regardless. What's the point of making a neder? Oh, he was referring to the aspect of this fruit which is generally consumed, i.e., the vinegar. So bottom line is, we have 3 shittas in this Mishnah and Brisa. Tanakama learns like this. Fellow makes a neder from tamarim. What is he asur in tamarim? He makes a neder from sitvanias. He's asur in sitvanias. But don't include the juices or extractions. It's a different entity. It's a different form. It's liquid and not included in the neder on the solid. Then we have Rabbi Yehuda ben Kessler, who says it is included. So if you make a neder from either the tamarim or the dvash, then everything's included. So you make a neder against the tamarim, that includes the dvash. Making a neder against the dvash, it includes the tamarim. And likewise, when it comes to those grapes, you speak about the grapes, it includes the vinegar. Speak about the vinegar, it includes the grapes. But the last shita, Chachamim, are following Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, who holds, sure, you make a neder against tamarim, includes the dvash. Dvash includes tamarim. But when it comes to inedibles, such as sisvaniyas, over there, if you make a neder against sisvaniyas, you ignore the sisvaniyas, which are in any case inedible. Rather, the neder applies itself to the chametz, and only that's included. Says the next Mishnah, what if he makes a neder on the liquid itself, directly on the liquid? He says, I'm going to keep away from wine. What constitutes wine? We have wine produced from grapes. We have, apple juice, apple cider. It's also considered yayin. What's included? Only classic wine. Only standard wine from grapes. Mutar b'yayin tapuchim, you can have yayin derived from apples. He says, I'm keeping away min shemen. What's your classic oil? Shemen zayis, olive oil. Mutar b'shemen sumsimin. You can partake in sesame oil. He says, a neder min dvash. Typically dvash is bee honey. Mutar b'dvash tmorim. He can have date honey. Min chametz. I'm keeping away from vinegar, which is typically made from wine. Mutar b'chametz sisvaniyes. He can have the chametz that we discussed before. That's not your typical standard chametz. Min creation. Keeping away from some sort of vegetable leek. Mutar b'kafletes. He can partake in sort of a subcategory of leek, which isn't your standard leek. Min yerek. Keeping away from vegetables. There are the garden variety vegetables, which are cultivated and healthy looking and healthy tasting. You can have the wild growing vegetables. What's included in yerek? The garden vegetables. Mutar b'yarkas hasoda. In that case, he can partake in the wild growing, vegetables. Shu shem levai or livui, because this explains the whole Mishnah. Because you have yayin and you have yayin tapuchim. You have shemen, which is shemen zayis, and you have the other subcategories. Shemen sumsimin. All those have an added, adjective or label, so to speak, to them. It's not your standard. It's yayin tapuchim. It's shemen sumsimin. It's yarkas hasada. So, livoy means it has an accompanying, title to it. It's not your standard typical, and therefore it's not included in his neder. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, it all depends on your location and what is considered stam shemen. Hanoidim in Hashemen be'Eretz Yisrael. You're living in Eretz Yisrael where there was an abundance of olives, so standard oil was olive oil. Mutar b'shemen sumsimin, v'asher b'shemen zayis. You must keep away from shemen zayis, but you're mutar and shemen sumsimin, which was barely used in Eretz Yisrael. But if ube bavel, you're in bavel, there it switches around. Also b'shemen sumsimin, your neder pertains to typical shemen, which is commonly used, sumsimin oil. Umutar b'shemen zayis, shemen zayis is not included. What if they use both oils? Mokim shemestapkin mizeh mizeh, a place where they use this and that. Also b'zeh b'zeh, the neder applies itself to both. Pshita, of course, why not? Like tzricha, perhaps the chiddush is the ruba ben chad mistapkin. Apparently, we're speaking about a place where most people would use one type, and a minority of people use the other. And the chiddush is both are us. Why? Ma'od perhaps I would say ezel basaruba. Let's follow the majority, and that's probably what you had in mind. The more commonly used oil, kamashman, the chiddush is Safek Yisur l'chumra. We have a Safek in terms of what you meant, and it's an Isser related issue. We go l'chumra. And the Lech Mishnah explains, although typically, throughout the entire Torah, in the most severe questions, majority rules. Why, pinked over here, do we say, well, maybe you have to be choshesh for the miyut? Says the Lech Mishnah a novel point. When we follow Raiv, when the Raiv factor and the miyut factor collide with each other, they're incompatible. They're mutually exclusive. But here it's not so. Some people can be using olive oil and sumsimin oil. This is for cooking, this is for bake. They're not contradictory. So even if it's just a mute who will use the shem and sumsimin, perhaps when you said shem, you meant everything that is commonly used. For the most part, most people or people for the most part use only this type of oil, not that one. Maybe everything is included, and that's how we have to assume. Continues the Brisa, when it comes to yaruk, hanoidim in a yaruk, I'm keeping away from vegetables. Which ones? The garden-grown ones or the wild-grown ones? Well, it depends what time it is. Depends what year it is. B'shar shnei shavua, if it's a non-Shemitah year, where vegetables are typically cultivated in the gardens, so then the Lashon Yarek pertains to the common vegetable, Asur b'yarkas hagina, the gina vegetables are Asur, Mutar b'yarkas hasoda, but the wild-grown vegetables are Mutar. Ube shvius, on shvius, it's the other way around. We don't grow vegetables domestically. Asur b'yarkas hasoda. So when he said Nedarim and Yarek, he meant the ones that are found out there in the wild. Umuta b'yarkas hagina, but can partake of the locally grown gina vegetables, which perhaps were planted last year and happened to be picked this year. That's not your typical, vegetable supply, and therefore not included in the neder. Omar Rabbevo, Mishum Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel, Lo Yishana. When do we say that on Shemitah? That did not mean to include garden vegetables. El b'makom she'en mevi'in yarek mechutz la'aretz. Only if in this makom they have a practice not to import vegetables from outside Eretz Yisrael. So then we assume that the only vegetables available are the yarkes sada, and only them did you have in mind. But if in this place they have a minhag, they have a shita to import, they allow imports. Also, so then even if it's Shemitah, and he said neder from Yarek, he meant anything that's available, including yarkes gina, which are imported. Ketanoi, this question revolves around the machlekes Tanoim. The Brisa says, "Ein mevi'in Yarek min chutz la'aretz." We never import vegetables from outside Eretz Yisrael. We'll see soon why. That's the Tanakama. Rabbi Chanani ben Gamliel, "Ein mevi'in Yarek min chutz la'aretz." We do import. My time of the mandamar ein mevi'in. Why would you say we don't import? Omar Rabbi Yirmiyah misham gush, you're concerned that when they pull out those vegetables, some globs of earth will come along and be imported together with the produce into Eretz Yisrael. And we know that earth of Chutz La'aretz contains Tuma Eretz Amim, which was enacted by the Chachamim because of mason that were buried all over the place. In any case, we're concerned about importing impure elements into Eretz Yisrael. We do not import. Chanani ben Gamliel apparently holds you do. It's more important to do this even at the risk of bringing tumah, rather than compel the residents of Eretz Yisrael to have to personally go out into Chutz La'aretz and perhaps risk becoming tummy by contact with Eretz Amim. Continues the Mishnah with more examples of L'shonos of Neder. Mina kruv, I'm keeping away from kruv, which is cabbage. Also b'espargus, you must keep away from some sort of asparagus, a variety of kruv, because it's included in kruv. It's a subdivision of kruv. I mean, asparagus, I will keep away from asparagus, so it's a subcategory of kruv. Mutar b'kruv does not include the parent category of kruv itself. Mina grisen, I will keep away from ground beans. Asur b'mikvah, you must keep away from a grisen soup. Mikvah typically means something hardened, congealed, a thick soup consistency of grisen, because of the grisin that are present in the mikvah. And the Ran explains that in the makom of Tanakama, they would call the mikvah, this grisin soup, this barley soup, whatever, they would call it mikvah de grisin. So it would relate back to its source, and therefore it's included in the neder on grisin. Rabbi Yossi Matri says no, because the Ran explains in his makom, it was just called mikvah. It was not named after the grisin. What if he says mina mikvah? I will keep away from like a thicker, soupy, consistent, a thick consistency soup. Mina mikvah, mutar b'grisen. He can have ground beans, even though they typically serve as the ingredient for the makeup of mikvah. But first of all, not always, and also you never call grisen of mikvah. So when he says mikvah, he didn't mean grisen. Mina mikvah also b'shum. I'm going to keep away from this pasty food. That includes garlic, which is typically prepared in this manner. So if you have a pasty, garlicky dish, that's called mikvah. Rabbi Yossi Mater, in his place, they did not call the shum in this manner. Therefore, this garlicky paste is not included. Shum, he says, he's going to keep away from shum. Mutar mikvah, of course, he's allowed to take part in mikvah because you never refer to shum as mikvah. And the Taisa says, when he says shum, he meant dry, uncooked, unpasted shum. Mina adashim, no lentils for me. Also by shishim, you can't have the honey-coated lentils either, because it's the same lentils, whether it's covered or not. Rabbi Yossi Matri says, no, it's a new entity, and not included in the Nedarim adashim. Mina shishim, all agree if he says, I'm keeping away from ashishim, mutar ba'adashim, you can partake in lentils, which are certainly not related to the ashishim. You never say the ashishim are, the adashim are called ashishim. The ashishim is sort of a byproduct, a more developed adashim, but not the other way around. So adashim perhaps includes ashishim, but ashishim will not include adashim. He says, chita chitin shanitayim. I'm going to keep away from chita, singular, wheat, and chitin, plural. What does that mean? So, singular refers to an entity, a baked entity, a wheat bread entity. Chitim is plural, a handful of wheat kernels which they sometimes chew on. He said both lashonos, singular and plural. Asr ben, he can't partake in wheat, bein kemach, whether in flour form, from which you make bread, which makes the chita, right? Bein kemach, you can't partake in the raw kernels, flour, etc., because that's called chitim in its raw form. Bein apas, nor can he partake in bread, which is included in the word chita, a singular bread entity. The same when it comes to beans. Gris, that's lashon yochad. Grisin is lashon rabim. Shani time, that which I will not, partake. Also ben chayim, you can't have them raw, uncooked. Ben mishal, or cooked, because when it's cooked, it's like a singular dish. It's a single entity. That's gris. Grisin is plural, referring to a handful, a bunch of uncooked beans. Rabbi Yehuda, he's just trying to explain the Tanakama. He's not disagreeing. He says, I'm not going to have anything to do with a gris. So again, singular, or another from chita, singular, only includes something which has been processed, like a loaf of bread or a gris, a dish, but not in its raw form, because that would entail a lashon rabin, as we explained. And the Brisa again elaborates on this point. Tanya, Reb Shimon, chita shanitayim, it lashon yachad, asur le'efois, he can't have it baked, umutalakus, but he can chew it raw. Chitim shanitayim, that's a handful, asur lakus, that's chewing, umutalefos, he can have it baked. Chita chitim shanitayim, both lashonos, includes everything, asur bein lakus, bein lefos. Same thing when it comes to beans. Gris, that's lashon yachad, that's a singular, expression, that's lashon yachad, a single dish. Shanitayim asur lavashel, it can't have it cooked. Umutalakus, you could just chew it uncooked. Grisin, that's plural, that's a handful of raw kernels. Shanitayim asur lakus, chewing is asur, mutalavashel, we could have it cooked. Grisin shanitayim, that includes both aspects. Asur bein lavashel, bein lakus. Hadran Allah, chanoitem navash. Let's just recap the lot briefly. What about extractions? Date, honey, vinegar from Sitzvania's grapes. We have three shittis. Tanakama says they're not included. They're a new entity. Rabbi Yehuda ben Seir says it is included, and in fact he holds that it's interchangeable. The liquid is included in the solid, and the solid is included in the liquid in terms of the Nedarim expressions. The Chachamim at the end of the Mishnah hold, like Rabbi Yehuda ben Seir, in general, but they have one exception. They make exception in terms of something which is not edible. I will keep away from sisvanis. Nobody eats that. Apparently, he was alluding strictly to the chometz and not to the fruit itself. When we speak about wine, oil, honey, vinegar, etc., without elaboration, just plain wine, honey, that refers to the classic, the typical, without any added labels, shem lavoy, that's a different entity, that's not included. So in Yisrael, stam shemen is shemen zayis. In Bavel, it's shemen sumsimin. Vegetables, typically, are the garden vegetables. But in Yisrael, on Shemitah, if you do not import, then Stam Yarek is Yarkes Hasada, which are perhaps available. We discussed vegetables, we discussed mikpah, we discussed shum. Chita is a singular entity, a loaf of bread. Chitim, a handful of kernels. Chewed raw. All the best to you and have much, much hatzlacha.